And welcome to another episode of the True Patriot Outfitters podcast. Folks, we have a super cool guest showing up here today. This guy was described to me by another guest as being known as the BBQ Jesus of backyard barbecue. I mean, that's a pretty heavy title being given to this guy. Not only that, but he is also program manager of Hoosiers with Hearts from the East Coast. My brother in the Romans Warrior Foundation. We're going to bring him in here. Welcome to the show, Mr. Dave White. Thank you for joining us, brother.
What's up, y'all?
Good stuff, man. So, like I told you before, Dave, folks at home, Dave and I have conversed through social media and such, but this is our first official actually meeting here, and we wanted to capture that and share that with you guys there at home. It's super cool to me that our two worlds here. So you're on the East Coast, basically. I mean, way farther east than me.
Pretty close. I'll claim the Midwest.
Right. I'm on the West Coast, kinda. You know.
Yeah.
We affectionately call Colorado Eastern California these days because it feels like that. But our two, and we both are program managers with inside of Romans Warrior, so we're co-workers with the foundation. You've got an amazing organization with Hoosiers with Hearts. We're trying to get our little side up and running here, out there. Yeah. And then to find out last night during our team meeting, our worlds are even closer together. You're a competitive. Now, are you guys called chefs? What is the title?
I think the proper nomenclature would be pit master. And
pit master.
It's an earned title, and a lot of that follows like the old French. It's all military ranks. So just like a chef is the top of the tote, you've got pit masters, assistant pit masters, and it all kind of still falls into that. You got guys that just do your garnish boxes, and maybe guys that just work sauce. So it can be pretty elaborate, man.
That's a heck of a lot fancier than I go fish. I mean, that's pretty much what I do.
Got somebody baiting your hook, right?
I wish. Yeah, no, I don't, because then I'd have to redo it myself because it's got to be the way I want it.
Yeah, I'm in the sauce. Same thing.
So you're a pit master and you compete around the country. You're one of only a couple guys that has a distinct title of being sponsored by a very important company out there that we all grew up on.
Yeah, man. We got a few, but probably the best known is Royal Oak, the charcoal company. And
yes, sir.
Man, I got to tell you, we couldn't be prouder of that one. That is old, and they've got serious American-made values. That's very important to them. They brought us out. They have about 100 people, 100 teams each year, right? That they pick out of hundreds and hundreds of applicants. So to make the team is tough. And last year we actually had the honor. They bring out about 35 to 38 teams to their corporate campus down in Roswell, Georgia.
Wow.
And we got to go down to that in October. And I'm telling you what, you want to talk about the red carpet. Like they don't treat us good enough. I mean, there were drinks everywhere, food everywhere, ribeye dinners, Waffle House breakfast,
wow.
Swag packs. And just, when we're leaving, they open the garage. They're like, get all the charcoal you need on the way out. So we came back heavier than we left.
Good night. Yeah, that's
can't say enough. And beyond that, just another side note, when COVID hit 2020, so complete lockdown, hospitals are working around the clock. We actually did a little campaign with them, and Romans Warrior was in on that. I mean, we were boots on the ground. We just reached out. We wanted to try to feed all the hospital staff, first responders. So Royal Oak ponied up. They sent a check, $1,000, just soon as we had the idea. They were the first one on the phone talking about they want to get behind it. So
wow.
I think over 8 counties, I can't remember now the thousands and thousands that got fed, but I got with 5 other pit masters from central Indiana, and we covered about 8 counties worth of hospitals, 2 and 3 hospitals in each county. So
man, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm Royal Oak for life. If we ever fall off the team, man, there's nothing else will touch my pit,
That is, and there's so much to be said for that. When we maintain this a ton, is that look, we realize we're just one small part of a big puzzle here, when we're all working to the same thing. And so when you surround yourself with organizations that are like-minded and have a same kind of, I don't know if moral compass is the right word, but this same mission, man.
Yeah.
The stuff can just be, the things you can do are really awesome when everybody kind of pools that stuff together. So that's, Royal Oak is absolutely that. Dude, I remember those bags when I was just yay big,
Yeah.
seeing those. Cause I mean, there was no, where I grew up, man, we came up really financially challenged, if you
Yeah.
will.
Oh yeah.
And there was no propane. Pro what? I mean, gas goes in a car, charcoal
Yeah.
goes on a grill.
Yeah. Yeah. Same way, man. Same way. That's what my dad always had around. So
Yeah, if it
it
wasn't
was,
that, it was firewood.
yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, man, we actually still, I use the good charcoal to get a good base going, but we still use, it depends on the kind of smoker. We've got gravity feds now. We've got the old barrel smokers. So we still use a lot of red oak and cherry and
Wow.
hickory here. We don't have any pecan out here in, South Central Indiana, but we've got hickory and cherry by the ton. And red oak is nice. It's a little more scarce because, it's a highly sought timber tree most
Oh, okay.
times. So
Gotcha.
not many people coming off of them if they can sell it most times, but yeah.
They don't want it to be burned up.
Yeah. I want it on a brisket and they want it on a counter. So I guess that's where we're at.
Priorities, baby, priorities.
Yeah.
So I was learning last night after hearing too, our worlds, competitive fishing, competitive barbecue, and competitive smoking, if you will. If I ever use the wrong term, just slap me around, get me
No,
straight.
no, it's all.
You travel all over the place to compete. I
Yeah.
travel all over the place to compete. It's not as if we don't have stuff locally, but when you get to a certain level, you're hunting down, bigger fish, for lack
That's
of a
right.
better term. You're hunting down a bigger field. And, in our case, when we joined, when I set out to try to merge these two worlds together, man, of the fishing and Romans Warrior Foundation, it was a matter of what stage can we get on that we can bring the most attention to the mission at hand. That's our piece. It's,
Yeah.
I'm going to be straightforward and honest, and I don't mean anybody in the competitive field to take this the wrong way, but dude, I don't need a competition to define who I am as a human being. All right.
Yeah.
This is a passion I have. I love fishing. All right.
Yeah.
And I love the community that comes with it. But whether I spend the next 10 years and never win a major, series event, I'm going to be all right.
Yeah.
But make no mistake, I want to take those fools' money. All right. I'm coming for them.
Yeah.
But our big purpose on this side nowadays is that Romans Warrior Foundation, now that this year's jersey is going to have the TPO logo side by side, putting that front and center in front of the cameras and talking to people about what we do out here, man. That's
Yeah.
that drive, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. We're lucky to have these kind of hobbies, have the ability to be competitive. And, that's why locally, and I know you're the same way, it's really important to me. There's a lot of talk here. We're starting to try to get away from the word backyard because everybody is good these days. And, you go to these backyard events and it's mostly local guys that just want to steamroll everybody. And if you get a guy that's winning a lot, they want to try to push you out. Well, for me to go do KCBS, so, that's the one we travel the country. Right now, I think we've got Tennessee, 2 in Michigan, and 1 in Illinois, 1 in Ohio on the schedule already. But those are $350 entries. It's, you got to get the top shelf meat. If you walk out there without a Wagyu brisket, you can just pack it up,
Wow.
Local, yeah, oh man, yeah. And I mean, that's a $250 brisket, one, So, and then it goes back through pork. You want to get, the best pork you can get. But so these local guys, and we're trying to promote more of, instead of chasing guys off, you need to build a stronger community locally and mentor these younger guys coming up so that our sport is always around locally and cheap. Because
Right.
that's what's hard to do. And then that's where our platform needs to be the most effective. We need to be reaching people in our market. It's great. We go chase these big shows, like you said. You want to be the best, you got to go beat the best. And
Right.
it also ups our stock with, sponsors. Like I said, we're constantly, and I always talk about the difference between being an affiliate, being a sponsored team, and being an ambassador. Those are very different. And so
Yep.
we won't get into all that, but I chase those things to be more of a power and to be a bigger platform for things like Romans and Hoosiers with Hearts. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. All the trophies are nice. Like, we could hang it up to, our resume is strong. I was in Denver in October. I don't know if I told you that. There was it's aired now, so I can talk about it. The NFL Tailgate Takedown is a show on Food Network. We got cast as alternates, so we were this close to being on. So they flew us downtown, put us up at the Slate downtown Denver there. And but it was cool. We could only really get to the foothills because we had to stay so close in case they needed us. We had to be within that 30 minutes, away. So Boulder was about it, as far as we could get out.
Right.
But it was a great time. And I've always said, my dad always said it, one of the things, I'll always remember him saying is, the places that barbecue's taking us, who would have thought cooking some ribs and stuff like that would have equated to, airline paid trips to Denver and first class trips to Georgia, so.
And what I've experienced is in a similar vein. It's for me, the thing that sticks out is I do get a chance to see areas of the country that no one really, sees as much. Now, in the boat world, when I competed there, we were going to more bucket list places, big high profile stuff. In the kayak game, the thing I love the most about this is I'm going to places that maybe guys haven't heard of yet, but man, they need to, because these places, the people, the communities, the community around kayak fishing alone, but just sections of the country. I tell my wife every time, I wish there were a way, and we're working on this, but trying to find a way that she could travel with me more. Because there's something about a 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m., the sun's barely coming up, and you're driving through this town that's got about 150 people in it. Mm-hmm. And you got to go through there to get to your ramp.
Yeah.
And it's a sleepy little town, and just everything's quiet and calm. And I'm like, man, I don't see this back home anywhere.
Feels like good old America, doesn't it, at that point? That's what I always say.
It reminds me, while I live in the Denver metro area, it reminds me of the other section of this country that makes up this awesome, United States. And it really puts some perspective on things, to respect a lot of different viewpoints on things. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, we got to get out of our own little world. And it's so weird that our sports, can bring that to the deal.
Well, that's the same. We usually, there are some cook-offs in the big cities, but you usually are in a campground or something like that, or a little town square, and you get to go to these, towns that are behind on, the modernization of America, and it takes you back,
And they're okay with that.
Oh, they love
They're
it.
way okay with that.
kind of same thing, because we'll set up on Friday nights, and the barbecue community, same thing. Like, I'm sure the kayak community, like, I got family now all over the country. I can break down about anywhere and have somebody within reach that I know would pick up the phone. But you're there the night before, you have your potluck, and then sun starts cresting in the morning, and there's just smoke rolling over the valley.
Right.
So we've got some good pictures of that kind of stuff, and I'm the same way. My wife and kid, we're trying to. Me and the boys roll out now, and it's pretty hardcore. It used to be a lot more hardcore. We're pretty pampered now. We got a big enclosed trailer, but we're out there all night. And, in the next 5 years, I'd like to get us a nice little motor home to pull to bring the wife and my son. And I think that they would enjoy it. Well, she's a way better cook than I am. We just get to go out. Yeah. She thinks it's funny. She thinks it's funny that we all get into it this much, but she's not competitive as she is a good cook.
Unless you tell her it don't taste good, then you see some competitive.
Yeah, I ain't even going there.
No, sir.
I'll tell you a real funny story. We got started. We started as kind of it was weird how we started. We food truck and cater. That's what I do mostly. And it started as a fundraiser. My son was born and he had a hole in his heart and some stuff at birth. He was hospitalized, yeah, for like a month. And my wife they gave her a staph infection at the hospital in her cesarean cut there.
Oh my gosh.
And they just kept misdiagnosing it. So for like 2 weeks, she was near death. And so she's in Bloomington. He's in Indy. It's about an hour trip. I'm going because he was lifeline to Riley Children's Hospital, NICU. So I'm going back and forth. I'm a landscaper, back then. That's what I went to school for. It was horticulture and landscape and design and all that. And so kind of my off season. But anyway, we start at this Kroger. I wanted to kind of sell wristbands, and she wanted to cookies. It was supposed to be like a bake sale.
Okay.
So they have a Coke trailer there in the parking lot of this Kroger, and the manager's like, why don't you try a cookout? Here's some hamburgers and hot dogs, donated them.
Good stuff.
I'm telling you what, and it blew up the first weekend. And I came back and I told Jessica, here we are, she's been off because the last part of the her pregnancy, she was out of work. So We're trying to figure out how to make a little extra money. It was tight. I ain't gonna lie.
Yep.
And so we started doing that. I come home and I'm holding $1,700 from the first day. Right. And it's like,
ain't bad.
It was like 2 weeks pay. Yeah. For me, back then. So, and I'm telling her, I'm in a day, I'm telling her, I'm like, I need to take some of this money. He's invited me back every weekend. So I'm going to invest some of this. And she's like, you're crazy. We got bills to pay. Like, I am the entrepreneur for sure. And she was a Kelly School of Business grad, and she is the breaks.
Right.
So I talk her into it. It wasn't a pleasant conversation, but she let me have my way. And so we came back the next week. Week after week, we're killing it. Then we've got this old camper, 79 Starcraft. It was me and my dad's project, right? From Arizona. Yeah. But dude, it was full of ants and falling down and dilapidated. So we'd had it for years. And I said, man, what do you think about turning that into a barbecue cabin? And he was like, you can do whatever you want with it. So I go around the frame with a Sawzall, cut it right at the bottom and push that whole shell off. And I could see my dad up in the window shaking his head like he's lost it. Everybody in the family is like, he's going to start a barbecue truck, and so. But we started because it was Jessica. We had the hamburgers and hot dog, and she had this crock pot pork recipe that was just lights out. So everybody's just dying over it. It's this homemade sauce. Well, one day, a friend came by, and he heard me joking around and say, yeah, that's that Sweet Baby Dave's. And this is her recipe. So he goes and posts about Sweet Baby Dave's on Facebook, and she's like, oh, really? My barbecue sauce, we were calling that now Sweet Baby Dave's. So it was, we've had some interesting ones. I don't dare touch her recipes after that, claim to them or judge them in any way. But
with permission.
Yeah. But man, we went on to build the Cabin on Wheels. If you see it, on Great White Smoke, as our company name. We built this little cabin up on that frame, and it became legend. This is our 10-year anniversary this year. And
Good
so we've had and sold another food truck since then. We had a couple restaurants, and that was a nightmare. I mean, just a nightmare. So we sold those, got out of that in like 18 and 19, right before everything dropped off.
Right.
So, and then she went back to work. She's got a great job with Sam's Club now. She makes plenty enough money, and now we're able to do the catering, and my stuff kind of is the fluff. And I'm home more with Bub these days. He transitioned from needing his mommy to now it's daddy time. He's 10 this year. So So it's a cool time in our lives. Good transition. I'd love to get him out there in the trail with us. Same thing, and have that family time.
Well, and it's those experiences that we see out there, man, that you wanna share those. I mean, it's therapy for me. There's no question about it. When I'm in the truck and on the road, I'm clicking off, 12 hours knowing I've got another 10 the next day to go. I've been throwing, like audio books, different things like that is what we'll throw on. I'm actually thinking of grabbing Babbel, dude, and
Yeah.
just learning another language while I'm on the road. I'm like, why not? Why not?
We're more alike than different, brother. I'm telling you, because I took that stuff. So I took Spanish in high school, and I know
Right.
enough. Like I've got some really good Spanish friends that are Mexican friends that are cooks, and when we see each other, it's about 13 words. And I'm like, man, I really like that guy, though. I may not like him at all once we learn how to talk to each other, but I kind of want to try.
Right, right. So a couple things here. First off, Kelly's School of Business. Are we talking about Kelly's School of Business and Management?
Yeah.
Like the full site? Because you're
Indiana
talking
University. Yep.
Yeah, you're talking to or wait a minute. No, mine was Keller. My bad. Never mind.
No, it's
Close.
all right.
Close.
Yeah, I can see it. Right.
That's actually, it was my graduate program where I got my master's was through Keller.
Nice, man.
You had mentioned an acronym, the KCBS.
What
What does that stand for?
Kansas City Barbecue Society.
Oh, okay.
So that is probably the oldest sanctioning body of barbecue. So you buy in, you're a member. I'm a certified judge. It is this probably the most prestigious. Of
Okay.
all. But now you kind of see like what we have our local sanctioning body that Romans and Hog Days and all that. The event that we do.
Right.
That is part of the Kentuckiana Barbecue Pitmasters.
Okay.
So that is basically more regional, where KCBS is really worldwide.
Gotcha.
And you got that. You've got the NBA, Mid-Atlantic Barbecue, Florida, Georgia. Each state kind of has their own associations.
Yep.
Texas has like 15.
So we have the same thing in fishing where probably some of the biggest names, in fishing, in the fishing, competitive fishing world would be, of course, the MLF and Bass. Mm-hmm. Those are the two big names in that side. Now, in the kayak game, Bass is also there now.
Yeah.
They're the biggest name, if you will, that's gotten in. But probably the biggest stage is the Hobie Boss series, the Bass Open series. If they'd let motors in, dude, I'd be all over it. But until they do that, we're not. That's a Hobie owner trail all the way I look at them. Yeah. They just have all the money and all the big names that fish there. That's the problem. So, and then, of course, an up-and-coming one that we are really proud to be a part of is called the All-American Kayak Series. They're primarily based out of like what we call the flyover states.
Yeah.
We hit a ton of water here. We're not, just focused on putting a field of 200 anglers out there. We're trying to make sure that we touch, the All-American tries to make sure that everybody gets a shot to compete out there. So, but then on your local level, Bass has got Bass Nations, and then there's a bunch of organizations that are regional. So real similar.
Yeah. My uncle's an angler, man. He's
nice.
Good. Yeah, I'm telling you, I love fishing with him. I mean,
heck yeah.
Really, dude, he'll put you on him. It's kind of wild to me because, I've always enjoyed fishing. We call it lip ripping. I'm sure that
ripping lips. Yeah.
Yeah. When we were kids, man, I grew up in the 90s, and that's what we would run the woods and the hollers. We're really kind of, Appalachia comes up through Kentucky and southern Indiana. If you look at a map, I live in a pretty wild area. Most people think of cornfields in Indiana, but we've got those good hollers here, man, and creek bottoms and good creek fishing, rock bass and stuff like that. But he'll take me out, man, with him and just put me right. He'll tell me what to put on. I'm like, this really doesn't feel fair. He tells me, water conditions. He knows everything to throw. So
that's awesome.
If you ever get out here, man, for Hog Days, which you should come. I mean, Boggs is a beautiful lake, man. Killer crappie lake. I think they got stripers in there, man. So,
nice.
Yeah, and it'll introduce you to Uncle Jeff. I mean, you guys, he'll love. He was an airborne guy, so
good stuff.
He loves all the stuff we do too.
It's one of the goals is to get ourselves established on a couple scenes, and then be able to divvy up that schedule. Because like this year, we've got a couple events with Romans that we're going to be traveling across to go do, and we want to make sure that we have enough schedule open to do that. Yeah. The trick, I'm sure is the world you're in as well. The trick right now is got to pay the bills too.
Man. And
my source of income is not the nonprofit, nor will it ever be the primary source that I can foresee. And so we have to keep our stuff going, and banging away on the other side there to make sure we can get that, to
Oh
flow
yeah.
proper. But I would love it if the nonprofit could consume 100% of my time, and then we'll just
Yeah.
fish for charity and fun.
Oh yeah,
But
man.
until that day arrives, which might take a few years, we got to stay hustling. So
Yeah.
now,
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you about Great White Smoke. That's your
Yeah.
company, right?
Yeah, man. Dave White, is my name. And when we were on 3rd Street there at that Kroger, like I said, we started with the crock pots, and then Kroger brought out these ribs. They were having a rib contest with Kroger nationwide to sell the most.
Okay.
So he brings out these deli ribs. I got no shame. So I'll tell you, this is way before. YouTube taught me how to barbecue. Like, I was a landscaper for sure. So
Right, right.
this crock pot pork, and then he brings out these ribs, and they're pre-cooked deli ribs. And he's like, he made me some great deal on them by the case. And dude, they won that nationwide, because I'm out in the parking lot. My cousin brought me my first smoker, this old fuel oil drum tank, like hog roaster.
Right.
And sold it to me dirt cheap, supporting my mission back then. And we began to slay the ribs. So that's when I had to take to YouTube and start really figuring it out, because I didn't want to get called on my BS, out here with crock pot pork and pre-cooked ribs. And so I really started to lean into it, and
Sure.
man, it just took off. People would smell the smoke down 3rd Street. We're in, very, tight, west side. It's all, commercial area. So everybody's gridlocked, stoplights, and I'm rolling smoke through there. Just got them trapped.
That's
I got,
awesome.
I got this trick. We'll take garlic powder and throw straight into the fire, and it makes this smell. Man, I'm not joking. We call it meat zombies, because you can watch that smoke hit somebody going in the door, and as soon as the smoke crossed their face, they would turn and look and come right over to you. So when we'd see crowds heading for the door and a good a good breeze in our direction, every time.
Meat zombies.
So everybody would say, I smelled the smoke all the way down there. It smelled great. And I heard that so much. One day I just said out loud to a group of people there, I said, yeah, maybe Great White Smoke. And clicked.
Bang.
Yeah. So
there it is.
We just kept at that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Good stuff. So Hoosiers with Hearts.
Yeah.
When did that come about? What key, because for me, I know where my motivations come from, and there's usually a couple key moments in everybody's life that you hit a crossroads and you can make a decision what way you want to go and what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
What was your gateway drug, man, that got you into wanting to serve others? What opened it up?
Well, we talk about gift and a curse, and just an empathetic soul. I've always said that's one of my things. I don't want to say I'm a softie, but when I see people, I'm able to almost know what they're feeling. I can almost put myself in their shoes, and I'm not saying that I feel their pain, but I can only imagine in certain situations. So I have great empathy for. I was the same way. I grew up, my parents were lower middle class, so we didn't get benefits. We made just enough money to have to suck it up, and just deal with it. So it made me tough, but it made me empathetic. It made me appreciative. So there's a group of guys here. It's a huge group, Southern Indiana side by side. And it's some of my oldest friends are the two guys that founded that whole thing. And they're just good old boys with side by sides, and they go on all kinds of trips together, big family, just like our hobby. What they do is they circle up RVs and then they ride trails sun up to sundown. The coolest places along the Appalachia,
Very cool.
So they have so much influence in their group and such a big reach that when the tornadoes hit Western Kentucky 2 years ago now, I believe, they did a lot of good driving. So they set up in a parking lot, and we all have our trailers, and then people we'd set up at Sam's Club, and we'd put our list at the door, and people would just fill our trailers. We took them to a trucking company, Kent Boone, out of Duggar, Indiana, and he would truck it down and do that. So
wow,
watching those guys do those kind of things when the floods hit Eastern Kentucky last year. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
Oh my God. I mean, it was like a 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 1,000,000 year flood. It was astronomical. And I'm going to tell you, I watched the news and it really didn't prepare me for ground zero. You know, they say that kind of, but I knew some people, we were planning on trying to do a drive and stuff. But what I kept seeing was people displaced, no water, no food. And
Damn.
I'm sitting here, I've vended for IU football games. So the stadium holds 50,000 people. The parking lot holds, who knows, probably twice that much. So we literally have the capacity to cook for thousands and thousands of people. And here I'm sitting 6 hours from this with, enclosed trailers, bunch of smokers. So I called up the guys and I was like, I'm going. I can't sleep thinking about how much help we could be, right? So I got my crew of, I think it was 5 of my guys, 4 of my guys, 3 of my guys and my sister-in-law, Angela. And we were going down. We started raising money on Venmo on the fly. This is, pre-Hoosiers with Hearts. This was the birth of Hoosiers with Hearts. It ended up being because we got donations, went and bought stuff, and we were getting donations and buying stuff on the road the whole time down there. While we'd run out of stuff, people kept sending money and we just kept buying. It was trying to find towns that had energy, the power on.
Right.
So anyway, but Travis and Chad, the founders of Southern Indiana Side by Side, they the same way. These dudes, their hearts outweigh their bodies by a crap ton. So they jumped in. Travis brought his RV. They come down there. They had connections in Knott County, which was probably one of the hardest hit areas.
Okay.
Hindman, Kentucky, Hindman, Hindman, Kentucky. So they got us a good spot down there where they knew everybody could see us. The locals got the word out. We went down there, man. We got about 3/4 of the way and stopped for the night at a campground and cooked a bunch of hog, pork shoulders. And then we came in with food ready the first day.
Nice.
And I'm telling you, man, people coming up covered in mud, families were still cut off. The water was so high in areas that they couldn't get to their family across these hollers. So they didn't even know if their family had made it. I'm going to set the scene for you. And it's pretty, I'm far enough removed from it now. It doesn't choke me up like it did. But when I first would hear these stories, I almost couldn't tell them back.
Right.
You're asleep, okay, 10 o'clock at night, it's raining, flash flood warning type things. About midnight, the power goes out. So all of the emergency broadcast stuff is out, cell phone towers are out, everything is out, nothing to wake you up out of a dead sleep. People said the first thing that woke them up was the sound of the electricity cracking as their house was being lifted off the foundation and washed down these little creeks at the bottom. You're in the mountains, and that's what an Eastern Kentucky holler is. The mountains and the foothills and all that, they're so close that when rain runs down those, it turns the creeks into rivers.
Right.
Well, these turned into gorges, man. I'm telling you, as we were leaving, I was seeing debris and treetops that were 60 feet tall in the bottom of these gorges. So houses were getting swept off. They were finding bodies in sandbars with just like the feet sticking out. That's the only way they could find them. Bodies they were finding were so tore up from being dragged down the hollers. They couldn't identify them. So, and we were there days after that. So, but we ended up, we fed about 5,000 people, super happy. They came from the time we showed up to the time we left. Another group came in the weekend after us and did the same thing. And so, we did the same thing. We did a food drive. Through all that, we were using Venmo, and it was very tricky to get money off of. Venmo kept freezing the money because they thought we were like a scam or so. I'm like, we've got to get some validity to this thing if we're going to do this. And, as I sit here, I hope, I know I'm wrong, but I hope that we'll never be needed again.
Right.
But we wanted to be better prepared for the next time rather than just stuffing all we could fit in enclosed and taking off middle of the night, so
right.
That was the main line. And It was rough, man. I mean, it was beyond work. I mean, you want to talk about
Oh yeah,
taxing, little sleep, and I mean, it felt like every true sense a deployment that you don't ever want to have to make. But what are you going to do? Somebody's got to go,
sure.
So
And that's the call, man. And when certain people, answer that call, I was once told by a very educated, experienced, I should say, young man that was involved in one of the nonprofit programs that I was volunteering with. He says, make no mistake, we absolutely need the monetary donations from people and from companies. That has to be there to keep these things running. He goes, but I'm gonna tell you this, man. He goes, anybody can write a check.
yeah,
Not everybody is willing enough to give their time. And that
yeah,
time piece, when you share that, and they understand, these guys, folks understand that you're taking time away from your family, from your life,
yeah.
because but we've always said this. One of the things on the True Patriot Outfitters that I maintain, and I always tell people, you will not find politics here. That's never
Yeah,
going to ever be a topic, because
yeah,
I don't concern myself with that. So what I care about, because I really honestly don't think it means a hill of beans. What
yeah,
I believe in is local communities.
yeah.
I think that's where you can impact the most. And when we start taking care of our neighbors, start taking
Yeah.
care of each other, just doing small things, whatever it is, dude,
Yeah.
that's where big things can start to, blow up and really take effect.
Well, through that, when I had radios shoving mics, we got home and continued the drive at Sam's Club, and we had radio stations there, and that's what they were saying. And I'll tell you, I live by a Sammy Kershaw law on our podcast and stuff too, and we don't talk about politics, religion, or her, the one that got away. And but I will say, man, because I'm not ashamed of it, that I'm a Christian, and that's
Sure.
what I've got a bigger compass than the law of man. And the things that I'm doing now are for the checks to cash later,
There you
on
go.
on my good deeds, because we've all had times in our life where we might have did rotten things. So I think any good that I can do now, I'm only trying to make my case for that day. So
So Brian and Romans and I share a very similar. So I have a master's degree in business administration. You'd think I'd know a thing or two about business, and like Brian and I both say, this whole nonprofit thing, this is really, really great thing for the Karma Bank. It just really sucks for the actual bank.
yeah, oh God,
we're
yeah,
we're
people
hoping that
don't,
eventually that giving thing is gonna,
yeah,
we're working
and
for it, man.
people people really overlook that, and it's easy, and it is hard, man,
Yeah,
because you get caught up where there are a lot of people, and I'm sure that you've heard this, that think, guys like us for those kind of things ought to be compensated. So they try to give you money on the side, or be like, no, listen, man, you got to take care of this costs gas too. And,
sure,
you try
sure.
to tell them it's all included. It's all figured out. Like, I'm
Yep.
not letting it hurt me. Now, that's not always true. And you
Right.
and I know that, because there's
Right.
just times, dude, where somebody's got to cover the gap. And
Yep.
sometimes it comes back and sometimes it doesn't. But along with my time, those small contributions here and there,
Sure.
we've been blessed now, and I'm sure, you're doing all right now. But we came from a place to where giving back matters.
Yeah.
I can still see myself back in that time needing help. And to be fair, man, through my son's stuff, there's been a few times where it's got bad for us, and we
Sure.
didn't even really put out the call. I've always tried to give something in return, like a wristband or whatever. But as soon as people know you're in trouble, man, I mean, if you're a person that helps other people, you can
Yeah.
almost bet that people are always going to hold you up. And I always think about, if something happens to me, that I want them people to hold my family up.
Yeah.
So same thing, man. And I know they will. I know, especially our brotherhood,
Yeah.
everybody's got each other's backs here, and it's been awesome to be a part of it.
And that's a fantastic segue right into this. How did you come to
Yeah.
meet Mr. Brian Romans and then
Yeah.
be brought into the RWF family? Because once we're in, we're never out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
We're
mean,
gonna bleed RWF until they throw dirt on us, and maybe even a little bit after.
as long as there's a post, I'm at it, brother. You know what I mean? And that's what it's, I think that, it's, there's a gravity of things like that. I always say, when we were going to the hospital that day, my wife, when I looked at her and I'm like, how are we going to do this? Knowing that she was in bad shape and he was
Right.
going, She was like a day at a time. So that's my approach to everything. And so, but Brian was working at Crane Naval Base at Westgate Academy off there at the time. I don't know how long he had been in Indiana at that point, but I pulled up out front with the food truck. So Brian comes out and he sees that I'm wearing a Wounded Warriors shirt at the time. Under Armour, we had a deal with Wounded Warriors. So, and he's like that shirt? You want a better one? He goes inside and brings me out a sweatshirt and, brought me a hoodie. And we had got to talking about, things that we do. And he told me what he did. He had coffee that he was doing back then. And we just hit it off, man. He told me about, his wreck and what his vision was, and that he was fairly new to the area. And, I liked what I heard and told him that I was a lifer here and connected, and that there are some politics like there are everywhere, and that I would be an advocate for him any way I could, just because he was such a nice guy right out of the gate. I mean, so giving and eager to tell his story and his mission. And I could see that he truly had a desire to help people.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a part if I could, and he's made it pretty easy most of the time. Like, it's, all of this is hard and it's work, and you got meetings that pop up that you need to try to, value everybody's time. But yeah, man, we just never looked back, and it just grew from there. And we're both very ambitious, as I can tell you are. And, like-minded people will gravitate toward, ambitious things. So here we are.
And you had mentioned earlier about talking about people with hearts, that outweigh their bodies. Brian Romans is absolutely that.
Yes, he is.
It was one of the pieces when I got a chance to meet him, and then get a chance to talk with him. Literally within minutes, I felt like you said it best. I love that term, the gravity. There was something about him that, I was being cautiously optimistic, because I always, before I meet new nonprofits back in those days, I'd always put them through I've got a spreadsheet that I would use, that I would go down and do research on nonprofits before I'd work with them. Because I wanted to make sure that they're, packing the gear before we put our name next to it. And I'll be honest, I had kind of made up my mind before I ever even did that with Romans, because there was something about him as a person, and then meeting his beautiful family, and then meeting others associated with RWF. I'm like, and he talked to me about possibility of joining, a little bit more. And at the time I was thinking I needed to keep separation from the nonprofits that I worked with, so that I could provide equal service to all of them. But after a while, it made total sense, to come together with this, and my gut and heart was telling me what needed to happen. So that is
vision, cool, man. When you talk about Brian and how you first meet him, and I can remember when I seen him walking across the parking lot. Well, I liked his truck a lot. I wanted it when I saw him. I was like, that is sweet, logo and everything. So, and he comes back across, and then just his his delivery. Like, he was very confident in his vision, and I think that's
recruiters.
Infectious. Right.
He's a recruiter.
Yeah. If he wasn't a salesman in this life, it's been in there somewhere, man. Who knows? But no, I mean, he really, and it's hard, man, because, and I'm sure you're the same. I'm like, the entrepreneur spirit is hard to, keep that straight and narrow and not too many branches. And like you're talking about, it's very easy. I want to be a part of so many things, but you just have to, compartmentalize and do what you can,
For sure. Now, did you ever serve in the armed services?
I didn't get to, and I really hate it. I got recruited. I'll tell you the story, and I always feel like it makes me sound kind of like a pud, but this is how it went. So I was a high school athlete.
Okay.
I have still to this day asthma that is it's athletic induced, and I get really bad around pet dander. It sucks for me because I like all those things, right? But you wouldn't know it now, I got a body by barbecue, but up until I was 18, I was student athlete, multi-sport, letterman from varsity on, freshman year, I lettered baseball every year. So all the recruiters obviously worked through us athletes. So I sat with all of them. Army was going to put me on baseball. But really, it was probably going to be rec league. They're talking because I'm trying to get a sponsorship or a scholarship back then. Which was hard in the '90s. We didn't have YouTube and all that.
Nope.
So all the recruiters come through. The Marine recruiter was the very last one, and I told all of them about the asthma. I'm like, the one thing that worries me, because they'd ask, what worries you about it? Because I wanted to go. I really.
Yeah.
And I'm probably blessed I didn't know. Who knows if I'd have made it, man. That's what. So the Marine told me, he said, here's what I'll tell you. You don't seem like a follower. You seem like the guy that would try to advance, right? So let's say that you're leading a squad or whatever, and biological warfare is very real, and you have to put on a mask, and you can't take your inhaler, because that's what he asked me. He's like, what do you do when you run cross country? I said, I tuck my inhaler in my waistband, and I use it completely against doctor's orders and hit it like a turbo anytime I'm feeling down. And probably not good, but he said, you can't do that. And so now you've got 15 guys out here, and you just perished. And if they're not ready for next man up, you might have just led 15 guys to their demise.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe a recruiter said that to me, and his honesty shook me enough I almost saw it like a vision that's what would happen. And I felt like he planted that seed. So I didn't go, man. I shook all the other recruiters. I, at the time, had only been landscaping and worked around sports. I mowed in the summers, and I dug Christmas trees in the winter. It was the only thing I knew was plant identification and things like so. That's what I went to school for. I thought that's what I had a path in coming out.
Right.
And, but it's still, all those things instilled hard work. I will always, my grandpa served. I can trace family back to the Revolutionary War.
Yep.
So it definitely matters to me. It will always be a regret that I didn't get to serve, but I'm still here, and I feel like maybe my purpose is so, and that is another reason why I feel so obliged to serve now, especially guys like Brian and veteran organizations. They went and did what I couldn't, so I feel like I've got that duty to kind of pick up the slack now and do what I can.
I bet, man. No, I hear you. And, other than you making me feel old when you said you grew up in the 90s.
Don't let the beard fool you.
I was going to say, yeah. So I did not grow up in the 90s. Well, I kind of did, but I was growing up in a bar in the 90s. But,
I hear you. Yeah.
No, so our worlds, though, are so scarily combined. So you shared yours. I'll share with you mine. And mine's way less drawn in. So I actually did join the United States Navy. I went off to San Diego to boot camp there. RTC, NTC were side by side back then. This was early 90s. Clinton administration was in.
Yeah.
A lot of budget cuts taking place.
Yeah.
And got there and just, thought to myself, well, I made a mistake. I probably shouldn't have done this. Then settled in after a few weeks, decided, nah, we're good to go. Unbeknownst to me, going on through Washington or any place else, is they were going through and combing through applications and looking through recruits and looking for anything they could find. Well, they came across some work that I had done on my back. And there may or may not have been, some visible signs here and there with me. But the bottom line is they looked through that and they saw that I had the potential. I had an issue on one of my my lower back. Yeah. I ended up going into what they call legal hold and forced me to call back home and get a chiropractor to send over their notes. So I basically retained counsel because they were prepping to get rid of me. I retained one of the JAG guys, basically, as it was my right as a recruit, to fight that and stay. I had got bumped from company 080 all the way to company 085, which really sucked because I lost contact with a lot of guys that I started day one with.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, after a couple of weeks of doing this and being in some really, really less than desirable barracks situations with some guys were similar to my situation, other guys not so much. Basically, my petty officer Enlow, I'll never forget him. He goes, listen, son. He goes, I need to tell you something. I'll fight this fight for you. Okay, I will try to keep you in here. He goes, but this is kind of like fighting the mafia, except he says, except the Navy has more money than the mafia. He says, so I need you to understand we're not going to win if they don't want you here. And he says, trust me, they're not giving you, what they're giving you is an erroneous enlistment, means come on back. And I look at him and I'm like, come back, you say. I just spent, 6 weeks here for nothing.
Man.
So I got bumped out of there. It's some really wild memories, some not so great memories. I didn't make the greatest decisions when I first got there too, but like you said, I look now at my 2 kids. I look at where my life's at. I look at where these things are at, and I'm not a believer in some predetermined, destiny of some sort. That's just not something I really subscribe to. Yeah. But what I do give way for is that there's some stuff going on out there that I have no comprehension of. There's some powers flowing around, moving some things, moving some parts, and I have no idea what the hell that is. But what I do know is that we've got the means to do it. We're here now, and let's go make it happen. And so
what I didn't always have is patience, and I'll tell you that is something that's come on. And especially my dad was a great teacher, and I always thought, how can you just lay back? Because I'm a very push kind of guy, and that's what that Marine recruiters saw that I was a grab it and try to make it more type person, and I still have that, but now I think I take the losses better with more grace. I understand that the losses. So I was in sales. Here in Indiana, it's so cold. In the winters that you can't landscape all year. So that's kind of how I got into food too. I was a bartender, and but I had a couple of stints where I tried to sell cars, and I was too honest. I mean, I could sell a brand new car all day because it is what it is, but I couldn't sell used cars, and that's where the money is, Yeah,
exactly.
Those skills were valuable, and what I learned from that was I had a guy tell me, he's like, don't let the no's beat you up. It's about a thing that every 3 no's, you'll get a yes. So, or you'll start to see that pattern, and every no that you get, you're closer to something working out.
Sure.
So I kind of use that mentality for things. When it doesn't work out, I just discard it as wasn't going to be a sell anyway, and wait for the next opportunity. Absolutely.
I was going to say every no is another opportunity. I'm part of an organization called the MPAA, which is the National Professional Anglers Association. They just hosted a big deal down in Florida. Their special guest was one of our sport's biggest names, and that's Gerald Swindell. People know him as G-Man. Well, he was our guest down there, as he's a supporter of the MPAA as well, and he had a phenomenal seminar that he put on about positive mindset. And I was so proud watching him say these things, because not only have we modeled this long before it's been said, because I've learned it in other business sides, but to hear him, stamp that validity to it, man, it's like that is the truth, man. You've got to, when others think that it's the dumbest idea or you're getting clowned, we have it out here in the kayak game right now. Right now, there's a group of folks out there that go around thinking the term professional kayak angler is a joke. Okay, because we're relatively still new.
Yeah.
There's only maybe a handful of people that truly kayak angle only, and that are getting paid enough to survive doing that. Maybe literally on one hand, you could probably count them in our sport.
Yeah.
But the reverse piece, like I tell people, is this your main source in career? And do you fish at the highest possible level that they offer? If you've answered yes to either one of those, well, then you're a professional kayak angler, okay? I mean, it may not be glorious yet. And like I tell people, I didn't say I was a good one. I just said I am one.
I might use that.
That's exactly. It's all yours, man.
Yeah.
But but you have to breathe that stuff into existence, man. And the same thing with our giving back. I won't quit. I won't ever stop. It takes its toll on you. But if your events are like ours that we attend, man, it takes one event to see that healing take place with one of these warriors.
Yeah.
and it totally re-energizes for the entire next year. It's like, bring it. I'm ready to go again.
Well, I tell you, man, and you touch on a lot of stuff. I mean, I can tell that if we were closer, we'd probably be hanging out quite a bit more because when I started the food truck, I obviously couldn't just, I had some investors, man, early, and I almost say they were predatory, and I don't care if they see this or not, because they were a couple Marines, and I trusted them, and they were good businessmen, but I kind of feel like looking back, they might have been coming for my assets, because I built that cabin. I had no debt, I had built everything, so these guys got in for nothing, and then tried to tell me that I need to quit my job, dive in with both feet. And I'm like, brother, I got a brand new special needs child and my wife is home. Like, I don't think we got there. The wolves were at the door, man.
Right.
So we're trying to launch this thing. And so I get offered a job with the city of Bloomington, government job, good benefits. But it was one of the hardest things I had to accept. It was a parking enforcer, right? So I would walk, 13 miles a day, just pissing people off all the way. You know
right.
what I mean? Just
you are not a fan favorite.
Oh, dude, I got stories for days for my short stint there. And but I would walk that beat and I would listen to Zig Ziglar, Eric Thomas. I didn't listen to music in my headset. I had motivational speakers, and the things they would say were happening in my life. So it was so crystal clear to me, my path, and it was not to my family. And that's what I kept hearing in these headsets is the people that you need behind you the most are going to break your heart when they don't have your vision and they're not behind you. And you're pushing forward. That's some of the loneliest time in a person's life.
Right.
But I kept that short memory mentality and kept getting these little wins. And eventually, man, everybody started to see that I wasn't just quite crazy, that I had a direction. And but that's it, man. The breathing it into existence was,
yes, sir.
I was not going to let anybody shut that down. I'm telling you, man, I was working at the city. Every second I wasn't there, I was barbecuing. And as soon as I learned how to do it the right way, I never, got from that. So I'm up all night with these stick feeders. Now I've got these, they're called gravity feds. They got big thermostats on them. It's like a wood burning oven.
Oh, wow.
So I get a lot more sleep. But back then I had to set my clock. I had to get up every 2 hours to rotate my meat and make sure I wasn't burning stuff on the old cookers I had. So for about 3 years, I was living on 4 hours of sleep a night at best, working that job and, the city. And it takes, I always tell people looking back that landscaping would probably be a lot easier than the food truck and the barbecue, especially, big, heavy smokers to move, all the lack of sleep. I got a new kid. I mean, it was a disaster, waiting to happen, but perseverance and patience, man.
And there's one edge difference, though. It really, and this is the part that it's hard to tell folks because, they don't understand the grind that goes into this.
It sounds cliche to them.
But I will say, when you're doing something you love, it truly is. It's not a day worth of work. I can drop 12 hours on the water, eating a PB&J for the most part. My sugars crashed 3 times out there.
Oh, man.
And I'll get back. I feel worn down and just literally beat, over the side of a truck. And I'll still have a grin on my face because I'm thinking to myself, look at what the hell I get a chance to go do. This sure as hell beats going back to the IT industry, man. I'll tell you that much.
That's what, and I think, I say that they think it's cliche, but it's people with lack of drive that think it's just kind of a cop out. Like, breathe it into existence. Well, man, go try it one time. Get passionate about something. And I think there are callings. Like, it's funny how, you find yourself in that groove. And that's why I say my vision was so clear that it literally felt like I was connecting the dots by something just leading me into the next step that I needed. As long as I seize the opportunity. Sure. And but yeah, man.
I knew I had it bad when the 3:30 in the morning, which was always like the spring tournaments, because boats needed to be on the water by like 5, picking up, co-anglers and all that stuff. So 3:30, you're getting up, you went to bed at 10 or 11, so you got no sleep, and now you got to go, run the Mississippi River with 150 boats racing around you, this and that, and go try to find your spot. I knew I had it bad when that didn't bother me.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
didn't bother me. I'm like, and when I was done, I kind of missed it. You miss the grind. I miss the hustle. This whole winter has been that way. It's like, when, come on. Let's
Well,
feel that. I want to feel that wear and tear again, and get back to it.
competition's kind of like that for me now because it's a grueling. Now I get all this sleep, and when I go to competitions, I'm up all night. But when the food truck started, I think that must be another shared mentality of people that are like that when it becomes a game. When you're trying to outdo your last sales and you're doing all the little things to make it more efficient, and that becomes the challenge. And I can remember I'd have employees with me, and we'd have to go to Sam's Club real quick or something. And I mean, I'm just like, my baseball coach used to say this about me. He used to ask that. I had a good friend that was our assistant, an older brother. And he was like, you tell me right now, is Dave White on speed or roids or something? That is the kid on speed. Because I naturally was just like sixth gear wound up, And when I get excited and passionate about stuff like that, I'll just drag them right behind me. And they're like, God, slow down, And I'm like, we got to win. We got to win at all costs,
That's right.
Whether it's out selling a truck next to us or just beating last week's mark, just get better.
So now, do you guys in the Pitmaster and the barbecue competition lanes, do you guys have kind of an off season, or do you guys go year round?
Well, the guys down south got it made in California. The warm states, they never shut it down. Here, traditionally we it's a pretty from like November till usually April, it's pretty low. But these guys, I got a competition next weekend. The high is 32, okay? And it's called, they got the best name for it. They said they were so sick of throwing their August event and everybody crying about the heat. So they have one January 28th. It's the Frosty Balls Cook-Off. But it was 60 a week ago here, like record highs. And I was like, yes, let's find this little groove. And then no chance. Bunch of snow on Wednesday, but we'll get out there, man. This one is a little bit more of a backyard feel, so I'm leaving the ovens and taking my old smokers and doing it kind of. So this will be a throwback cook for us,
Good stuff. Yeah, man, there are so many similarities in our worlds because, all the southern guys, southeastern guys, we have a lot of connections with different anglers that we've affectionately call as part of our little True Patriot, network that have agreed that if we have events in their area, they will volunteer and help out where they can. And they help spread the word social media, and watching these guys out fishing and running lakes and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I was just firing the snowblower up yesterday, moving, 3 foot of snow off my driveway here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
guys
get the same
Texas,
season.
I'm sure you're the same way too, because I know there's good great fishing down in Texas. Bill Dance, the proof of that, right? But we watch those guys. So we go to the Royal Oak Invitational in October, and you think the season's winding down, and these guys are still knocking out. I see our family grew down there because you're on this team, but you don't see them, and then you come to that event. I'm telling you, 35 of the best in the world, and then you get to be friends with them from there on Facebook, and so family grew. But I'm watching all the guys in Texas and Florida just ringing it up, and I'm like, man, they got months on us. It's hard to keep up, with guys that can cook all 12 months. So we got to pack it in.
Well, and that's, one of the biggest things guys will tell you in this industry on the fishing side of things is nothing beats. And this truly is. Guys try to find ways around this, and they don't want to listen to this because this is the hardest part. There's nothing that can replace time on the water. TOW. We had a little struggle last year that some of my struggles from my boat world followed me into the kayak at the very start of the season. And I literally took I withdrew from a few events and took 30 days off to just go fun fishing and dial my head back together and remember why it was that I fell in love with this and what's happening. Why do I show up on tournament day and squawk out so bad? What was going on? And one of my very good friends that I've met in the kayak world, he is maybe one of the most accomplished kayak anglers on the planet. His name is Jody Queen. I interviewed him on the podcast, and we became pretty good buds. He chimes in on my personal page. He chimes in on this. Says, listen, man, don't use the downsides as a reason to not do something. He goes, time on the water, brother. He goes, just go get your time on the water. And man, was he right. I was on the water 3-4 days a week, just fun fishing. Even mornings I didn't feel like going. I'm like, nope, going. Yeah. So I go and I just work through some things, and sure as heck, the next competitive, trail we get on, we're feeling like, hey, we got something figured out here now a little bit. I'm feeling better about what I'm learning at these events, and that truly is. Yeah. The more you do it, the better off you are.
We don't have an acronym for it, but when we've had a little drought, we're like, I'm ready to burn some meat in a parking lot with some friends, and that's what it really is. Because we're competitive, but man, I'm telling you, it's just guys are givers, and that's what I had. When I started coming up, it wasn't quite like that, and I got a couple guys I've mentored, and they beat my butt last year. Finally got over on me, so I'm proud of them. At the same time, I'm like, I finally created a monster here, but
right.
They always support the Romans Warrior Foundation. They fly the banner. Ridge Bros, great dudes, but
nice.
They're proof that of our community. There's some guys that come in and weren't sure, and I'm telling you, these are smart guys. They're in their mid-20s. I'm giving them this advice over casual conversation. After they've been in it a year, Cody, the older brother, he's like, hey, man, I want to show you something. He's got a binder with cliff notes, like a whole Dave White section of, and I'm like, I need a copy of that thing for what? I was like, think I need to market. Maybe
I think I got some good advice here.
The curriculum is pre-built now. So, but we actually are. We're teaching classes this year, too. Charles Gordon and I, the founder of Kentuckiana Barbecue Pitmasters, I won their first series, King of the Q, back in 2019. So I'm kind of stepping into that ambassador role for the series and trying to promote that. I don't want our champions to be like the old champions and to try to chase guys off into the sunset when they have too much success. I want to build the community we have so that, our events are lucky to get 12 to, if you get 20, local teams at a cook-off, it's a pretty big deal. So that's because they've chased so many people off through the years. If we built a bigger community, now these events that are they're all for charity. So they need as many teams as they can get. So building that community is really important. So
100%, man. That's
one of the 37 directions that I'm letting myself go.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's easy to kind of forget, what you got going on there. So, listen, man, what it would be the next big event? So now Hoosiers with Hearts is kind of different than other nonprofits. Hoosiers, you guys deploy when there's a natural disaster that takes place. What would be kind of your effective striking range with Hoosiers? What kind of do you have a boundary or?
When we got back from Eastern Kentucky, I was very ambitious about it, and I said anything this side of the Rockies. Now, since I drove back, we flew out, and I wanted to take a barbecue tour on the way home, so I drove back across Kansas, and we hit Kansas City down to St. Louis. And I'm thinking, man, that would have been a pretty good tow. So, it's just a heart thing, man. I mean, honestly, with that, we were lucky that was, we're not lucky, but that was so close that I felt like we couldn't say no. But if something happened to you guys and it were all hands on deck situation, if we had the means, we would go, 100%.
And this is what I try to express to folks, why it's so important that we will remain in the home of Romans Warrior Foundation. Yes, TPO is its own little baby, but here's the piece I look at. If something goes on, let's say in Kansas or Oklahoma, and I hear Hoosiers is being deployed, I guarantee you I am ringing the bell and finding every bit of resource we can from this location, and we're rendezvousing, man. We're in the middle. We're going on hands on that. Yeah. This is the benefit of being, you and I are kind of the two most furthest on the east and west sides. And then we got some south and north, working together. This, for a very small nonprofit, Romans Warrior Foundation, dude, our reach and the potential of what we can do and our impact is big. That's why we need those companies stepping up and helping us out with this. Is just allow us to be ready, man. That's what we're asking for. Is allow us to keep the healing rolling.
Yeah, give us a chance to be reactive. You know what I mean? And that's what the reach is another thing. That's what knowing that, I saw Chris Pratt, I'm a big fan of him and all his movies, and he had a really good speech, an acceptance speech not long ago. It's kind of viral, and he had like the 9 rules by Chris Pratt.
Yep.
One was don't be a turd, be a humble influencer. If you have influence, you need to be able to use that for good, not just for self. So knowing that we're lucky enough to have that, it feels like a duty to use it for things like that. So
don't be a turd. That's so a very brief stint for like a season or two. I coached throws, and I was coached for 18 years, football being my number one. And then I got a chance to teach some track and field, and leave you with this story here based on that don't be a turd thing. Our Century High School, shirt I'm wearing, Century Panthers, our boys throw team was very, very new. We had a lot of 8th graders and 9th graders. This is our high school track team, keep in mind. We were bringing kids up. There weren't a lot of accomplished throwers in this group. We had some amazing, these boys, I absolutely love those boys. The dedication they had to trying to learn this craft. I never threw in high school. I was 175 pounds soaking wet. I was speed. I played football, man. That's all I did. So I had to learn the technique pieces and how to coach it and train it and teach it. So we all kind of knew the score, right? We knew where we're at our first year. And with the boys being that real, to really bond with them, to make sure that we were all on the same team. Last motivational speech I gave them before one of our big events. All right, boys, don't suck. All right? That's our goal tonight. We're going to go out there and try not to suck tonight. These guys loved it, and to this date, I still hear, that it gets brought up by this group. And now, mind you, this was, 9 years ago, or whatever. So to hear that those young men still remember that, because they knew where it came from. It wasn't a matter of me, no, we knew what we were doing. We knew where we were at. We were accepting it. Yeah.
Enough said. I love that, man.
Well, listen, brother, I can't thank you enough for coming on here, and I absolutely am going to make this a point to figure out. Obviously, our season schedules get nuts, but we're going to work something out. We absolutely are. I need to come see you guys. We'll bring the kayaks, get out there, do some fishing, and I want to learn more on this. Because, dude, I don't miss barbecue at all.
Oh, yeah.
We're proud to have Brian from Q Incorporated, joining on board with us.
Yeah, hey, Smoke Bros. We need to get you hooked up with Smoke Bros.
Smoke
Mikey
Bros,
V.
too?
He's a Green Beret, ex-official.
Right.
Of course, the dude is a marketing genius. I mean, we work with him a lot, but he's another one. Man, you come to Indiana, we'll treat you so many ways. You'll have to like one of them. I'm telling you. So
I love it. All right, man. Well, listen, thank you for cutting out some time for us here. We're going to have you back. I know that for sure. And we'll talk about when your competition season gets fired up. I may be doing this from the cab of my truck or whatever on the road. But that would be super cool. Catch you when you're on scene, and we'll do some stuff. We'll get it out there. But thank you so much, man, for joining us. We sincerely appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine, Gene. Keep it up, right, man.
I'll talk to you as soon as we get off air here.
All right, man.
Gotta call up, 1, 2, 3, 4.